Thanks. I'm Sarah. I'm codependent. I was thinking about that chosen family because I'm going to talk about family. And I've heard the 12-step meeting, the members are my family of choice. And that meant a lot to me when my family of birth wasn't my family of choice. I was in a meeting earlier and someone was talking about and I always get this confused, nuclear family. Is that what you're supposed to say with your family of origin? I always said nuclear because it would just blow up in my mind that, ooh. Anyway, so I was asked 3 months ago to speak at one of these series, and I said, give me August, because I love Promise 8. So the promise is not just about family. For me, it hugely is. So that's where I'm going to start anyway. So when I was looking at this with semi-fresh eyes, I noticed the word choice in there. And this was one of my dilemmas, was that I didn't think the words choice and family could go in the same paragraph, much less sentence. My family was not abusive. They were enmeshed. There was love, smothering love, and I just didn't like them. At times I hated them. And I wanted to be with my friends, and there were family get-togethers and events all the time, it seemed to me, which in reality, looking back, seemed at least once a week that we were celebrating something or going to a funeral, or just, we went to church every week. We just did almost everything together. And I just wasn't into it. So they weren't an evil family. It's just that is what my family was, period. And it didn't work for me at the time. And that's how it was. My dad was depressed and also had simmering anger. I didn't like that. In fact, I'm still deathly afraid of people's anger, even if it's not directed at me. So I learned to never make them angry, my whole family, and to always try to cheer them up. As a 5-year-old, it was my job to make the adults happy, make everybody happy. And let's see, what that led to was a Great Depression. I was depressed from age 8 until I was 45-ish. And I took the world on my shoulders at that young age and thought I had to save everyone and make them happy all the time, which, come to find out, is actually impossible for anyone. And finding out in Coda too that I'm powerless over others, and that it's other people's responsibility to take care of themselves, to find their own happiness, and things like that. So I didn't want to be alive. The threat of hell kept me from killing myself. And I was always told to be happy because Jesus died on the cross to save me from my sin, which actually did not cheer me up, thinking about that. Yeah, that was just a big thing growing up, that I had to put on a happy face all the time. So my parents, my family did not know that I was depressed. nobody knew until high school, my best friend in high school. So I have a sister 5 years younger and a brother 9 years younger. So I had to babysit. We were never really close because of the age differences. So other things about what my family get-togethers were like. We went to Disney World and, well, Disneyland first. And my dad, I was always confused on what fun was. So my dad would push me in line for a ride and say, go have fun, go have fun. And he would be pushing me. And I was like, oh, I have to do this. I should have fun. It was just, they meant well, I'm sure. But that didn't work for me. So lots of relative get-togethers. There were some almost 200 people, 100 on each side of my parents' families, and we would all get together and very frequently. So I was told to, on the way to my grandparents, hour and a half, 2 hour drive, think about what you're going to say to your grandparents. Because I was quiet, I was shy, but I always had to entertain them. And I didn't want to, I wanted to play. But that I was always teased that you don't talk much. And I still am. I still get that. But it used to drive me crazy and made me think I was a bad person because I didn't have that personality that I would just go up and talk to people, especially adults. Yeah. Oh, I'm an adult now, but I'll get over it. So nowadays I'm like, that's who I am. And when I get in a crowd, I'm usually not that talkative. And my attitude now is there was a group of people after a meeting that went to a restaurant and everybody's chatting away and chatting away. And I was trying to say stuff. And after a while, I went to my partner and I said, I'm all talked out. Can we leave? And she started laughing hilariously because, of course, I didn't talk much. And everybody asked her what she was laughing about, and she told them. And so everybody laughed at me. And now it's just kind of a joke. But I digress. So Promise 8, I was ultra respectful. I love the part about being safe for me and respectful of them. And I was respectful in that I did what I assumed they wanted me to do growing up. And I wasn't respectful in the way that I didn't think they were capable of taking care of themselves. I always thought of them as weak and somebody I needed to save. So I never wanted to hurt them. I wanted to make them proud. I did excel in academics and sports and music. And I got many accolades, but I never felt good enough, of course. So I was told just do your best. And to me, that meant I had to be perfect. And I had someone later in life tell me that it was arrogant to think that I should be perfect and better than everybody else who is human. And that sounds harsh, but it really hit me, stuck with me, and now I really appreciate it. So after a while, wanting to not be on the planet, I went from a goody-goody to a bad girl. And let's see, what do I want to say about that? You can use your imagination. I got married to one of my drinking pals. We were living together I was living with him and 3 other guys in a house. And his proposal was, don't you think your parents would like it if we got married? isn't that romantic? Well, I did marry him, and my parents loved it because I wasn't living in sin anymore. And um, what I grew up in Minnesota, and I was 1 year sober and was hearing in meetings about honesty, and um, it was later in the steps. So we got to step 9, and I thought, I'm going to make amends to my family. I have not been honest about who I am. And so I wrote them a letter and said, I've been depressed since childhood. I'm an alcoholic and I'm a lesbian. And I took it to my sponsor, and she said, don't send it. And I hadn't done all the steps, but I sent it. And mostly I regret it. I mean, it happened maybe for a reason, I don't know. But since that time, they sat me down and preached at me that I was going to hell and how much I was hurting them. And I couldn't handle it. I was a year sober, still depressed, really shaky in my sobriety, and decided to stop contact with them. And ironically, well, by that time I was sober and I had come out to myself and got a divorce and was with my current partner, actually. And she suggested that I send Christmas cards, birthday cards to my family and not burn the bridge completely. But they kept writing me going to hell letters, and she would read them just to make sure nobody died or anything and not let me read them. So let's see, after years of that, let's see. Oh, I can turn the page. I do have notes because I get nervous and forgetful. But so after about 5 years, my parents came out to visit us. Moved from Minnesota to Spokane, Washington for my partner's job, and my job was going away in Minnesota. And so after a while, my parents came and visited. And I was okay with that. We didn't talk about anything controversial, and we had a good time. We've been a family of playing games. So we played canasta, and my mom and I were partners, and we played ping pong, and my dad and my partner were partners, and we had a good time. And so we've been mending ever since. And I made amends to my family, not so much, not for who I am, not for who I am at all, but just being present, because like I said, I didn't want to be with them. And so there came a time when I would just not show up at things. And that hurt them. And it's tricky sometimes what's taking care of myself, being safe for me, and what's being respectful of what other people want. And I don't have all those answers, but one day at a time, and talking with my sponsor and keeping coming back to meetings and hearing the literature, I can tackle each situation at the time. So let's see. Oh, after 2 years in the beverage program, my sponsor said, maybe you'd benefit from Coda. And so that was great. That was great. She saved me from my, I mean, she was the one that said that I was arrogant if I thought I had to be perfect. And so at the other meetings, I would sit and cry, mostly about the loving higher power thing. I couldn't get it. And I would always carry one of those little packs of Kleenexes. And so I didn't use them all, amazingly, But when anybody cried at a meeting, I would toss them my Kleenex. And I learned in Coda that that's not preferable, because you could interrupt and stop the tears, which may be a good thing. And also, it's more respectful to have somebody ask for what they need. And that when my sponsor told me that was a Coda thing, I was confused. I was like, what, really? But anyway, I've come to appreciate a lot of these little Coda things. So my first Coda meeting was 10/16/99. I love the literature from the first meeting. That kept me coming back. And fast forward. Okay, so that's what it was like. It was very sick in my opinion. And I don't really blame my family. I look at how they may have shaped me into some of the things I didn't like about myself. But my parents, even when they were alive, my mom had Alzheimer's for the last 15 years of her life. And it was really hard because my dad didn't get it. And so he would yell at her. I would call them and he would say, pick up the phone, Lois. And she wouldn't know what a phone was. And so he'd just yell louder and louder, pick up the phone. And it was really hard for me to hear and go back and visit and see him being angry with her. But I did have some compassion, and I did mostly look forward to visiting them. So there were many trips to Minnesota. We also played games with my Aunt Angie, who was just like my dad, and my bad Aunt Marky, who was great. Bad. I also had a bad cousin Sally, and they were bad in a way which is very good for me, because at one point they left Minnesota. I think there may be 4 of us in the 200 people who have left Minnesota. Enmeshment, did I mention that? So 2 years ago, my brother's family came out to Tucson to visit us. We had a great time. I mean, it was so amazing. And for my 60th this year, my sister actually came out. My sister, you see, I was her daughter's godmother, and she was horrified at who I became. And she was mad at me for 18 years. So I need to be real careful of that relationship, that it's safe for me. And now it is. It's safe. It's even fun. We're total opposites in personality and likes, and well, she likes to play games too, like me. But we had a great time at my birthday party, and they stayed for a few days. And so anyway, what I'm saying is I went from pretty much hating my family to having a really great relationship with them. And this promise of being safe for me and respectful of them has just been a saver or a life changer. So I guess if I have a little more time here, I wanted to talk about becoming more loving, intimate, and supportive. I believe that I was always loving, intimate, and supportive in various ways. Supportive is a tricky thing, because I thought that meant helping everybody all the time. Well, so I was saying yes to everybody all the time before Coda. And I got to Coda and I thought, oh, I got to take care of myself. I'm going to say no to every other person. I'm not going to jump in and save them and do everything for them. Well, then the pendulum kind of swung to the middle where, yeah, I can be helpful, especially when asked, and that wouldn't be disrespectful. But I can also say no when the sacrifice to myself is too great. Like I said, it's sometimes hard to distinguish. So I'm really grateful for that free little gift of sponsorship, big gift, and other CODA friends, recovery friends that I can go to and say, this is what's going on. I think I want this. Is it okay? Blah, blah, blah. And find my own answers in my talking. So I realized when I was picking apart this promise that some of the words didn't mean exactly what I thought they meant. I kind of have a warped sense of certain words. And, like anger, I always think that anybody irritable is angry and huge and ugly. But anyway, that's one word. So I broke down the word mend. I learned that it is possible to mend, and definitely see mending in my family relationship. So mend means to repair, restore, improve, and correct. So repairing is repairing something that is broken or damaged. My relationship with my family looked excellent because I appeared to be happy all the time and, did loving things toward them. But it was damaging me on the inside. And turns out it damaged our whole relationship because I was not being honest with them. And so I ran away. Restoring, I usually say that I never really had a relationship with my family. So how could it be restored? Of course I had a relationship. Just because it wasn't great, I had a relationship. But it was restored to something beautiful and improved, night and day improvement, although it was slow in the process. Changes are difficult for all involved. I mean, I changed hugely when I got to CODA. And let's see. Oh, to correct, like when a chair falls over, I can pick it up. Well, when a relationship is messed up, how do I correct it? By working the steps, of course. And the steps are about relationships for me. I mean, it's just, starting from step one, I admit I'm powerless over others, and healing the relationship with my higher power, myself, and others is why I'm in CODA. So, I don't know how we're doing on time. Just checking. So I did start to think about men's and amends, which leads us into step 8. Step 8, which is made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. If I've harmed somebody, like I've mentioned, my parents were crying because I'm a lesbian, and crying because I didn't show up to stuff. I forgot to mention the shame too. If I didn't show up for everything, you should hear how they badmouth people that didn't come to every single family event, which is what made me think this is not a choice. It is a must. It is a should. And turns out later I realized maybe it was an invite to go to all these things. I don't know. I don't know about that. It was real should. But I can take it now as an invite. So I was going to ask all these questions, but we can hold off until later. So step 8, talks about those who have been harmed by my personal and unmanageability, and it says our name came first. This is from Codependence Anonymous, page 56. I don't know which edition that is. I know it's changed. But personal unmanageability comes when I try to control, thinking I have power over others, which I did growing up. But there we have step one. Let's see. Now, mending to myself, I treat myself with loving kindness, talk to myself with respect and love. I forgive myself and establish healthy boundaries. Willing to make amends. Once again, I have the opportunity to turn my will over to my higher power for guidance. Must be willing to become accountable in all area of my life. My spirituality, it says my families and friendships, as well as sexual, social, business, financial, and legal lives. So basically, becoming accountable is what step 8 is about, to help heal relationships. So the last quote is from page 59. Our job is to list the exact nature of our wrongs, to accept and forgive ourselves for our wrongdoings, to be willing to make amends to those we have wronged, and be willing to face the reasonable consequences for our actions. We leave the outcome of these efforts to God. We have come to trust in God's time and way that the outcome of our willingness and honesty will always work for the benefit of all involved. And I say in closing, and then I thought, I don't know what to say in closing. But just again, what I repeat at every meeting, have the choice of communicating with my family and everyone. I didn't get to everyone in my life in my talk, but in a way which is safe for me and respectful of them, and respectful of me and safe for them. I just added that part. So thanks a lot for listening and letting me share. Yeah, I guess we're open to questions. Yeah, well, you did say that you kind of took the words out of my mouth. The first thing I thought of was just love them. Just love your brother. Just I don't know that I had the love that you're supposed to love everybody for my family, but that didn't ever mean much. It was always I liked my friends, and so I didn't like my family. But the process was of me taking care of me, um, being honest in that I wasn't lying, but not being honest where I put myself and what they didn't appreciate about me in their face. So it was kind of a blend of, yeah, I'm me. This is who I am. But, it was all I can say, it was a miracle. I'm sure we both prayed like crazy for each other. Maybe we prayed different things for each other, but I think that was definitely a huge part of it. When we got together, like when my dad was being angry at my mom, I would just hold her. And I loved it at the end. Like I said, she had Alzheimer's, and she forgot that, dad was the boss. And whenever he'd say something kind of not nice, she would just go, oh. And it was so great to see that. And it's like, yeah. I think of if I'm with my family and something isn't going right, I can be a duck and just let it roll off my back like water on a duck's back, and or stay in my bubble of safety. and realize they are them. Like you said, I can't change them. And just, it also talks in step 1 in the workbook about, walking away if the situation isn't safe. Go to the bathroom and call my sponsor or a close friend. Take a walk. So I had to do those things. Set time limits on how long I could be with them. But yeah, wishing you the best, everybody. Thanks. Yeah, my no contact with my family for 5 years was, fortunately nobody died. And I could come back to the relationship when the time was right. I'm not saying it's 5 years for everybody. It could be shorter, it could be longer. But for me, I mean, I was so miserable at the time, but I felt some relief that I I wouldn't I didn't have to be in that situation where I felt like a bad person. Um, I was the oldest and I was a goody goody, and then not so much. And then now my sister's, the matriarch of the family, really, my younger sister. My brother's always been an angel. He's so cool. Um, but I don't know if I can answer your question. How I felt about the no contact was, at the time, relief and somewhat sad. I guess when I sent the letter saying who I really am, I maybe thought they'd accept me. And so I was a little in shock too. But afterwards, after the no contact, I felt more safe to be with them because I knew they weren't going to bring up, you're going to hell and you should do this and you should do that, because they knew I'd go away again. So it did end up being really safe for me. And for me, it turned out great. So that's all. Forgotten to show you my t-shirt, and it says rainbow sheep of the family. Oops, sorry. And there's my rainbow sheep. So I mentioned my bad Aunt Marky and my bad cousin Sally. When the other thing about them was they totally accepted me. They were the first ones in my family that really embraced my partner and welcomed her into the family. And so when I saw this shirt, I took a picture of it and texted it to them, or yeah, it was in texting days. And so I really appreciated that acceptance from them. And I'm not the black sheep of the family, even though some of them might have thought I was. Um, but I am who I am. I'm a rainbow sheep. That's all.